So how is the Rwanda Land Management Use Authority working with actors, other local actors, in terms of providing awareness and also plan so that all the plans at the higher level really be translated to the local level for implementation?
Thank you, moderator, for the good question. Let's start by actually thanking GGI for Triple GI for inviting Rwanda Land Management and Use Authority in this workshop. I think it's very relevant to the mandate of the institution because we are responsible for land management, including planning for urban and rural spaces. So this is very relevant, and when we plan for urban and rural spaces, we have to ensure we go green growth. So Rwanda Land Management and Use Authority as a government institution has started, of course, with National Land Use and Development Master Plan. As a national plan, as we said, now we have in place that plan, that's a national plan approved. And during the deliberation, even we started by engaging all stakeholders during the development of that tool. It's where we engage the public and private sectors, and then we, even local leaders, even get some insights from the community. But also we thank Triple GI for supporting the awareness and training for local leaders, technicians, and the local stakeholders. GP has already presented how this readiness project has contributed or facilitated to create that linkage of the linkage between the institution and the community. Now we are sure that at least the local actors know that instrument, that national tool. And also we created also a platform online where even we ensure the continued access for everyone, including our partners, community, local leaders, even government, national government institutions. So the access is there, and now we are sure that it's well known by all all levels of the country. I can also add that we are also currently working with districts to ensure that subsequent plans, those detailed plans at the local level, are now being developed with districts, and we have so far currently working on 7 districts, and by this year I think 7 will be ready for implementation. But the target is high because by 2 years the target is to have all set of districts land use plan available. So it's why still we are looking for partnerships with other partners and you as Triple GI to continue this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, in line with that, in which area do you think your institution can be and acquire support from the GSF readiness project?
That's a good question. Looking that we are working with Triple GI on a readiness project proposal, maybe I think and hope it will be accepted so that we move ahead to the next step of developing green, climate resilient and integrated district plans. I think it's very important for Rwanda to start with planning. To have a detailed local plan, it's a way to ensure green growth. As you know, in the past, the development, the implementation has been done even randomly without any reference plan. But now we have to ensure land is very well planned and all development is done according to the plan. This will help actually to develop orderly and even balanced with a balanced development, balanced and green development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I move forward to receive Sylvie. We know that you presented a good presentation and with more details on what you are doing in Cleaner Production and Climate Innovation Center. And as the coordinator, you've given us much more details. So we know that you're working towards, creating or having more green industries and creating more opportunities for the private sector. So my question would be with the above mandates, especially when it comes to engaging the private sector into resource efficiency and green industry production. How do you envisage to work with institutions like GSF to de-risk private green investment? Thank you very much for the good question. Actually, with regards to green investment and the private sector engagement toward the green investment, there is too much risk, more than on the business as usual. So, the private sector is not always ready to invest money that is directed towards environmental friendly technology, because this comes at a cost that is sometimes presenting a risk on return. So with the continuous engagement, as I said, and awareness on benefits of implementing green practices, we are hopeful that the private sector will turn towards good investment. And when we look at GCF, of course, it's a huge fund that's geared towards supporting the private sector, and they have also tailor-made products for the private sector, which includes the concessional instruments, like when you see the guarantee, the equity, and also co-financing, where the private sector is not benefiting from full grant access, but also is contributing part of the investment to the green financing. So as a cleaner production and working locally with the national industries, but also SMEs, because as I said, they play a big part of the private sector. We hope that by raising awareness on the benefits, especially towards decoupling, showing them that the use of natural resources is not translated to economic benefits. So they need some efficiency. The natural resources need to be done, need to be used efficiently, so to minimize the impact. And as the CPCIC also, as part of awareness raising, there is that part of monitoring of information. You cannot say you are impacting something if you don't measure. So using the RECEP tools and other monitoring tools in the center, we hope to engage also to correct enough information on the impact of the private sector to the climate change, but also what can be done by the private sector to mitigate and adapt to the climate change impact. So this will be done through quantification of any impact during the design of the projects, because we need to have also engage the private sector, especially the platform, the PSF, on designing environmental projects, having concept notes that indicate what will be the impact, how we will tackle the paradigm shift to work from the business as usual, but to go towards the green practices that will impact the climate change, or that will avert the impact of the climate change. So we hopefully, and even apart from GCF and other financial institutions at different levels, at also levels of available funds from the huge one, but also for the SMEs, because also their capability or their what they need is not as to the amount required or to the criteria set by the GCF, but if they are grouped in clusters and we have identified proper technology, so they can also be able to access those funds through GCF. Also, we will contribute to monitoring.
But I also want to appreciate what DPI has done, of course, with Pannel and other actors like Rema, in promoting a small team of journalists who want to show their support in being part of the movement. They've offered trainings, they've offered good experts and trainers, and I think that can be a good beginning to involve the cadre of journalists who can promote this kind of education on the whole public to have, so that we mobilize without leaving anyone behind to promote our environment and to preserve it. Thank you.
The institution that Sylvie is heading, as well as Remba, so that the information that you have, all the great things that you're talking about, be put out there so that people can know. For example, what you mentioned about SMEs and how they can form an umbrella and probably access funds from the GSF and other projects to actually implement green technologies. That's something that really is very, very important. And I don't know how much you're working with Mr. Mugisha and all the journalists so that they can really give a flow to the information to the community and mostly to the private sector. Yeah. So probably from here you're going to connect and really find synergies in terms of working together to give the information that is needed to the community and other people who want to use it. So my following question to Mr. Mugisha is also how you can strengthen the relationship between the GSF projects and what GGI and REMA and Fonera in collaboration they did in terms of training journalists. That they have already trained some journalists, but is it enough? What was the outcome? And then how can you go further and strengthen this relationship?
Thank you so much. In that 5 or 4 days training, that was a hybrid of both theoretical training and then exposure to the green crops and the Chumbi project. You could see that most journalists had their eyes opened to what is happening. Most of them, they didn't have this information. So what I would wish to suggest is, if there could be like a network, like one of the recommendations that they suggested was to institute a network of Mshutis Viduchichi. That was a very good slogan. That would bring together the experts, because most of this environmental area was dispute that we're talking about, it is more much it is filled with technical words, and so it requires some expertise. It requires some involvement of people with this kind of specialized knowledge that the Roma people have, Larmoa and others, so that they can create a network with journalists, so that they together fashion up the kind of information that they can package to the public. What the media can provide is a platform, but in most cases, we don't have specialized reporters in this field. So building specialization is very important. Having a network of different actors involved who can help journalists understand these concepts so that they can easily translate them into what the public understand. It's very important. The other thing we saw that is really needed for the GCF and other actors that can look into is that, most of these words that we have in the environmental kind of science, they are more technical. We don't have these words in our local language. So it becomes difficult for the journalists to engage the public from a local point of view. So if you can come up with a compendium of words, translated into Kinyarwanda, the journalist can use when communicating with the public, I think it can be very easy for them to relate and transmit the knowledge easily. There are so many recommendations. I think we'll put them in a report that we share with Mr. JP's office. Hopefully we can look into them and see how we can gain much from it. But ideally, we need to have a framework of working closely with one another because we have a stake, all of us, in trying to promote environment and achieving the Green Growth Agenda.
I'll now move towards having some questions to Rema. Rachel Tusabe, I know you're in charge of advocacy in Rema, and knowing the role and the mandate of Rema to really bring together all the synergies and to work, collaborate with lots of information and ministries and institutions in terms of implementing your mandate. So how do you collaborate with all those institutions? Because we know that environmental issues are cross-cutting, and you work with a lot of ministries, institutions, even at the local level. How do you collaborate with all those actors so that you can achieve your goal?
Thank you very much. I think REMA stands for ensuring sustainable development of the country, and actually we don't look at Rwanda itself. We also partner with the international communities and governmental organizations like TPI and others to make sure that we learn from each other because environment evolves. Actually, you can't say that you know it all. That's why we revise our policies, we revise our environmental laws, and we don't revise all these if it were static. New challenges come on board. And these new challenges, we get to know them from several channels. Actually, I liked what you mentioned. The journalists are one of the channels through which we get to know that some of these issues are happening. Because sometimes we rely on research, academic research, other research to see how things are moving. But what happens in the public domain, we get to get feedback from the media itself. The NGOs have a key role to play to solve some of the community environment-related issues. And it's been a while when people thought that we manage the environment for survival, but we also manage it for improved livelihoods. So the private sector comes on board because they are looking for profits from what God created for them, that is nature. It is here at our disposal for all of us. But because they are looking for money out of it, not for development economically, they also come with solutions and at times bring about progress. If we are talking about issues of urbanization, who doesn't want to live in an urbanized area? The other day we were discussing if we keep building high-rise buildings, given the small land that we are exposed to, we all agree to that, without greening, and I'm not looking at only grass and trees, but it is also an issue. If we don't have enough grass and trees, what shall we breathe, for example? If we don't take care of the water resource itself, I'm talking about the water that we use in our homes. How do we manage the household water issues? How do we dispose it? The other day it rained and as I was coming from Kiporoso ends, it was on Sunday, I think it rained on the Saturday. The police and everybody was trying to get mud from the tarmac road, meaning that if there is no proper stormwater management, all those are a result of development, meaning that we have to have all the key players on board. We've reached an extent of even working with religious-based organizations, which attract a lot of crowds. People go to church, they go to the mosque, nobody calls them to come, they bring themselves by faith. So we've reached an extent of having MOUs with such faith-based organizations to include environmental sustainability in the sermons, in their faith, because we believe God created this universe to serve all of us. So those are some of the things we are doing, building partnerships, because everybody is here to survive, but we have to survive with each other. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for all the information that you've given us and how you're working with so many other institutions to really fulfill your mandate, as well as inform the public on all the issues that are arising in terms of climate change. So now, due to time constraints, we are almost at the end of the panel session, and we'd like to have some questions from the audience, even people who are following online. If you have any question, please let us know. Someone can help us with the mic. And whoever have a question, we are ready to receive it.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Jean-Didier Daisara from Placebox.org, a journalist. My question goes to the representative of Rwanda Housing Authority. Mr. Diraj said that if 100% is adopted, 100% adoption of GBNS will result to a cumulative emission reduction of 5.64 mTCO2 in 2030. The question is, what is the current status of this green building minimum compliance system now in our country? And what is the target of our country in terms of that context? Thank you.
I think the question is addressed to Delage, even if it's not on our panel, but so he can respond.
Thank you very much for this question. Just to quickly respond, so in terms of what is the current status, so the Green Building Minimum Compliance System was enacted in April 2019, which is officially part of the Rwanda Building Code. So since April 2019, there has been a lot of capacity building going on, and the GCF readiness window was also one of the projects that has supported some of the readiness and capacity building. At the moment, it is currently not being mandated. So as per the information that I have from Rwanda Housing Authority, they have planned to make it mandatory starting next fiscal year, that is July of this year onwards. So July 2022, the system would be mandatory for all category 4 and 5 public buildings. So these are all large-scale public buildings. We are not looking at residential segment at the moment, but only public buildings. And in terms of what are the emissions that we are looking at currently, so I remember some of the work that has been produced by REMA under the Third National Communication to UNFCCC. If we look at the emissions that we have from the building sector currently, it has been predicted that in the next 10, 15 years, in the next 30 years, without any measures related to green buildings, the emissions are going to increase. Only from the building sector, they are going to shoot up by almost 600% from the current levels, by 600%, without implementing any green building elements such as energy efficient lighting or solar water heaters or clean cooking applications. And it is also, and the same study has recommended that by implementing some of the green building measures, there is a potential to reduce the emissions by almost 50%. So we are looking at reducing the emissions. Instead of going at a trajectory of 600%, we are looking at slowing down those emissions, because we know Rwanda is fast emerging economy. Definitely there are going to be more buildings coming down. But now the challenge is, how can we slow down the pace of these emissions as we grow rapidly and also in a sustainable manner? So those are the emissions. But if you are looking at the specific numbers, I'll be happy to provide them in terms of the tons of CO2 emissions currently we have. But I hope it addresses your question. But I don't want to take a lot of time from the final session as well.
Thank you so much, Derek. If you have other questions, please.
Thank you. My name is Gabriel Osakino, and I work for, I'm the reporter at KienTimes.rw. Now my question, I address my question to Ms. Sylvie, Madam Sylvie, from CPCIC. You say that some materials that are no longer useful are not waste, and that could be very productive to the environment and the environment. And I want to know what types of those wastes and how do you guys transform them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the good question. It's very interesting. Yes, wastes that are not useful in the factory. One facility can be used in another one, and waste, as I mentioned, can be reused. This is the fundamental principle when it comes to waste management. To ensure that the natural resources or any other products that is used is spent completely till it can no longer be used. So you asked how? This is through recycling. There are material that can be used many times apart from the intended of the first consumer. If I am using a paper, I've just written a text, or it is a book, or it is a journal. It can be reused into either another product or for other purposes. Then that would be recycling, or it can be used many times, like home equipment that we are using. Many of them are used many times. It can be a waste from, I can just, I don't know how I can put it, but what I wanted to say is that from the industrial perspective, they generate a lot of solid waste, if I can say, but when you look at the amount, it cannot be useful within their production. But when you look at it, it is a raw material for another facility. Giving the example, like metal scraps, we have initiating the practices of sorting waste. And if it is not used, shouldn't be directly be sent to the landfill. If it is sorted, they can be valorized. That is the example of metal scrap. You know, they have been valorized, recycled into other products. It can be plastic, it can be paper, and even organic waste. Rather than sending them to the landfill, there are synergies that are possible between an industry that is producing organic waste with another facility like in farming. They can be used for composting directly or into animal feeds. Actually, that's what I wanted to mention. I don't know if I addressed your question. I'll clarify further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Pascal Nicola. I'm a journalist from Radio Service. I have two questions. One is about this GCF project, which is being closed. When you look at the baseline of where you started when you thought of this project here in Rwanda, and look at the baseline where you found and the activities that you did during this whole period, where can you rank Rwanda in terms of abiding the environment measures? The second question is about the engagement of private sector in the green investment. You talked about the private sector, that there are people who make business for money, for earning the profit. Then when you, I heard someone say that the use of natural resources doesn't mean financial benefit. You can't make business where you don't need benefits. So how can private sector people be friendly to the environment while making profits? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Journalist from Radio Service. I didn't hear your name very well, but I think your two questions. Pascal. I think your first question, maybe GP can address it. And then the second question, Rema can address it, or COV. Let's start with GP.
Thank you, Pascal, for the question. I think it's a tough one, if I may say. Ranking how a country is performing in terms of environmental protection management. Actually, the baseline we have is on what we communicate annually. I say we because we work together with, I know what Rema is doing as a mandate institution. So there's what we call environmental outlook report, which is developed every year on a fiscal year basis. So from where is where you can see that we moved from one point to another. We have environment and climate change key performance indicators listed in each sector, being what is being done in land use, what is being done in agricultural sector, and what is being done in environment and other sectors that are contributing or using the contributing to environmental protection. So what I can say, I cannot say that Rwanda is ranked first, second, or third, but on our own contribution, we do perform based on those reports we do. So they are available on the REMA website, and even will be available on other online on request. But what we do speaks out. We don't rank ourselves. Others will rank us, and you know how media, either international or local, congratulate our work as Rwanda. But the ranking, as because environment and climate change is cross-cutting, it's cross-border, we do perform regionally, globally, and we do our own contribution to that. But basically on the data, on what you're doing, you can find those reports online, and each year we produce an outlook. Thank you.
Maybe Rachel can also add something.
Thank you very much. Actually, we are now at the 6th State of Environment report. It is the most current. It got out in February 2022. We are about to get it to the public, but on our website, it's already a public document. It's the newest with the scientific rankings. In environment, you don't just talk out of blue. You have to do research and show what you have been doing. And on ranking itself, actually, we are also ranked by the Rwanda Governance Board. And we've been facing a challenge because the environment is cross-cutting. You find if something is not appearing in the district planning, and it is environmental, for instance, like handling soil erosion, handling, some of the issues that are cross-cutting, and if it performs poorly, it comes back to our ranking as REMA. We get questioned, what are you doing to engage districts? What are you doing to engage all the key players to ensure that your ranking gets to above 70%, for example? We would like to work with all partners to improve our ranking to even 100%. So meaning that if partners work well, because of the cross-cutting nature of environment and climate change issues, then our rank by RGB, Rwanda Governance Board, gets to a very desirable level. And at the international level, we have what we call the nationally determined contributions, and we have indicated as Rwanda that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to 38% at the global level as we implement the Paris Agreement. So the ranks are there, and the target of what we want to, where we want to get at the global level, at the national level, can be got at our website, and here we are talking about it. I like your question because it shows that you need information as a journalist to, to communicate to the public. And I wanted to comment on how far Rwanda is on GCF fund. Rwanda has got a country program which we are currently updating to ensure that we are moving at the right pace. We have the NDA as REMA, and we have a national accredited entity, which is the Ministry of Environment. Then we have the National Coordination Team, which looks at the different projects that come to us as the NDA. We don't just give a letter of non-objection for such projects. We sit with all the key players. And among these key players, the Ministry of Finance chairs the National Coordination Team. REMA is the Secretariat. We have the private sector. We have Pannel, which we always refer to as the fund, which is the national fund, it understands how to handle some of these issues. So we always work together to see that some of these projects that are to be submitted are responding to the country needs. Thank you.
Respond to the second question.
Thank you very much.
To the question on linkage between natural use management and economic benefits, I would say that we all know, and we all know that not what you have in hand is useful. So for what I wanted to mean on the statement, it happens that in the industries and SMEs, when they are making production, they source natural resource from the environment or raw material from the environment or elsewhere, even secondary raw material, those that have passed from in another industry or another production process. what they buy as raw material, it is not all that end in the end product. Sometimes when processes are not efficient, we end up having what was meant as raw material in the waste, which means it was not included in the product and it is not going in the production. Yet, those waste will be part of the production cost. So we can have expensive products, not that material was spent, but because we have spent money on buying the material, which is not on the market. So it is making benefit. Not all processes that are using natural resources have contributed to the economic profit of the factory, because we end up having some values in the waste. So that's why we are geared toward creating efficiencies in material use, in production process, and those wastage can come from different parts, either from procurement. They have procured material, but destruction come at the warehouse. But it is already a cost to the production. Then in handling, we have waste, like spoilage. If I'm talking of material that can be handled. In production, the equipment is not efficient. It is creating a lot of waste that are not used to make the product. So it does not mean that we have bought raw material, that we are making the economic benefits, or that we are charging the cost to the market that it has been used. So that's efficiency. Efficiency is looking toward using less material, but producing a more or even the same quantity, but with less material, minimizing all those linked wastages that come and that are not accounted for in the end product. So I think I got understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. I think we are almost at the end of. Oh, there's another question.
Thank you so much. My name is Esther. I work for the Ministry of Infrastructure. I have one question. Maybe it may be, I think JP will be the right one to respond, or Rema again. But what I want to understand, I'm building actually on Pascal's previous question about comparing when we were starting the project and its objectives, and now that we are crossing, I want to understand, like, now how ready are we, or how prepared are we if we are crossing the project? I want to know, again, but it goes with the way forward. I've seen that you will tell us the way forward after this session. But again, as we are answering to that question, I want that it goes with the way forward. If we are now closing the project, what's next? I've seen that there has been other previous GSF. So specifically to this 2020 GCF, GCF session, I want to understand then how ready are we? How are we going to sustain what has been achieved, or these efforts? Also focusing on the role of the private sector. Now the government of Rwanda is leading a private-led development. Is our private sector ready to carry on, to continue the momentum? Or are there strategies proposed to enforce that? I just want to make sure that this is sustainable, or how we are going to continue after this GCF 2020. Thank you.
Maybe let's start with Rachel, and then we will continue.
I think when I was talking about the process the NBA is going through and the country is going through, this is not the first, neither is going to be, is it going to be the last. This was a readiness project which was aimed at capacity building, And if I put it in Kinyarwanda, kwigisha no guhozaho, we are still building capacities. Actually, we anticipate to have even more projects for continuous focused capacity building. And we have actually other accredited entities from different partners, and we anticipate more GCF projects development. Actually, the aim is to build capacity to have several people develop projects towards resilience to climate change. Maybe he can add specifically on this particular project, but we are looking forward to more projects.
Yeah, thank you. I think Esther gave me, put me in her situation. If I answer this, it will be the closing. Because I'll be repeating what I'm saying now. So I took note, maybe in the interest of time, if there's no further question, I'll respond during the way forward session.
We are going to close this panel session. Maybe Misha wants to add something?
Yes, now on the panel, I would like to have a question as well. I will present it to my colleagues here. We know that the next COP27 that is going to happen in Egypt is very soon. And it's in Africa for the first time. That means a lot. How are we prepared as a nation to find our presence there, most felt, and of course, speaking on behalf of the media sector, how it can be also be planned to be integrated within the whole plan, because I believe that this is going to be one of those key milestones on our continent in terms of the environment. So we wish to know how REMA, GGI, and other stakeholders are thinking about this and how they're planning to involve the media in the forthcoming competition. Okay, thank you.
Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much. Addition, I think this should be taken as a recommendation, because we try as much as we can to have more people on board, the key players. And I think it is going to be taken as a recommendation. And we have to work with you to ensure that at least we have media representation. So that they don't take environment as just planting trees. So meaning that if you're dealing with youth that have gone through our national formal education system, I can assure you The curriculum at all levels has integrated development and climate change. And that's one, because we realized if we just do it informally, some could be lost along the way. So formally, and actually all courses integrate environment and climate, including mathematics. In mathematics, we say one tree plus another tree, those are two trees. So that at least they get to know when you're adding, you can add trees, you can even add something else, such things. In English compositions or in language compositions, any language, Nyarwanda, French, English, Swahili, and any other language taught in Rwanda, we've tried to design a way of integrating environment in the language itself. Other than that, we have also been engaging youth informally, actually including with us, because I remember some time back, I was participating in getting the best of it when Miss Fanarin, I don't know whether you know her, when she was still handling it. And we also have the clubs, community clubs, but that is never enough, because the youth keep evolving. Actually, you can't say you've done it all when you're dealing with youth. So we also introduced an award program for the youth who have innovations in environment and climate change. Those who have innovative projects, we award them every World Environment Day that takes place on 5th June of every year. For the last 5 years, we've been making calls for proposals, calls for awards, and surprisingly, we have been awarding youth. It's this year that we have added women to also come for the same award. So we are trying to engage as much as possible, but it's never too late.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I think this should be the last question from the audience. And I would like to thank all the panelists, starting from Mr. Mugisha from RMC and Alex from the Land Use Management Authority, as well as Sylvie and Rachel from REMA. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and what you're doing. So let's keep up the good work towards, bring solutions towards climate change issues. Thank you so much, and we are done with this session.
Thank you very much to our moderator. Thank you to our panelists. We appreciate the time spent giving your insights and feedback. For the 20 months that we've been running the GCF Readiness Project, there's been several stakeholders involved. So what we will do for our online participants and the participants in the room, we will share all the presentations and the contact details in case you would like to reach out to any of our presenters. Before we close today's session, perhaps, Grace, if you can check if there's any questions online, or if Mr. Kabishi from GCF would like to give any remarks before we close off. Mr. Kabishi, would you like to give any comments before we close?
Certainly. First of all, allow me to congratulate the REMA team as well as GGGI for this fantastic work that you've done. What you've achieved, not only during those 20 months of the program, but also today with this workshop, actually contributes to many of the objectives that the GCF has put into the readiness. And today in particular, for the sharing of knowledge as well as the consultation, we are very happy to see both the participation, the contributions, and the exchanges that have occurred. I'm very happy also to see, to hear the questions, the need for continuity, for the supports that should be coming, both from the GCF and other partners. And like our colleagues from REMA have said, I'm happy to confirm that the GCF remains available for as many readiness programs as needed in order to build on what has been achieved. I also would like to take advantage of these in order to point out the importance of innovation in what you're doing. And here, I'm very happy to say that Rwanda has been on the forefront of trying to integrate innovation in the fight against climate change. Rwanda is one of the first countries in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, to engage into a pilot program for green cities. Also, we have designed projects with accelerators and incubators as we're speaking. So please, I hope that we'll see these and that we'll continue to have innovation. And innovation not just at the technical level, but that also includes financial level, which, for instance, can involve the use of financial instruments that can adapt to the needs and to what's out there in the market. We are at a particularly interesting point in our GCF short life, because we'll soon be finishing our first period, what we call GCF1, Mobilization of Resource, and we'll be going back out there to ask developing countries to contribute further to the GCF for second replenishment. And what this should do is to enable us to continue to address the needs of Rwanda and other developing countries so as to be able to fight against the effect of climate change. And we do believe that advocacy will be more effective when we are able to show the kind of work that we do with our partners, like what this program that is being done with REMA and GGGI. So we're quite happy with that. And also beyond the readiness, we hope that these actually will yield even more projects, investment projects, if we may say so, in which we are participating as a Green Climate Fund. So thank you again. Thank you for inviting us. I want to apologize to all the others because I had to leave at the beginning of the session. I had another meeting that had already been scheduled, so I had to go there and come back. But I'm very happy that I was able to join you again. Thank you very much to Juliet and to the whole team. We're extremely happy to have been able to participate and to be associated with this. And we remain open for questions and discussions and any suggestions. Thank you again. This was a fantastic event. Thank you for having associated with the GCF. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabishi, and thank you to your colleagues from the Green Climate Fund who were able to join us today. We appreciate your time and your input. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to now move to the closing. I will first ask our representative from GGI to give us the way forward, and then we will ask our representative from REMA to give the way forward, and that will be the end of today's session, and we'll invite all our guests to join us downstairs for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I'm standing just first to extend apologies of our country representative. He has to join another equally important meeting, so he asked me to stand in his place to give this way forward. So before I forget, I will just start from the concern of Esther on the project is closing, so is it our activities or initiatives will be hanging? It is called a project because it has a temporal aspect of it. but the program Disabledness is for the fund is like a program. So what we do is to pick a thematic, if I may say, issue that had to be addressed by an annual or 2 years project. But in pipeline we do have many, as Rachel said, and we can keep pushing forward our agenda for green and sustainable development of Rwanda. So we are not just leaving the started element. As I presented, we are on a path where we start from strategy planning toward implementation. So this was focusing on translating the strategy and the plan we have at the national level into local understandable ways of doing. As Misha said, we may have technical concept, but implementer doesn't understand. This is what we do with capacity development, so that everyone in his capacities or her capacities can contribute. So we are not, we are just ending a project, but not ending the program. Disabledness is a program for the fund, but for us it's a project because it has a start and an end. On the PSF readiness, what we do, we create what we call enabling environment. When we provide everything, the PSF, the private sector, sorry, and not the federation, will come and implement. Like when we demonstrate them how the buildings can perform well on energy and materials, for sure they do cost benefit analysis and take the move toward green building. We have some examples that are emerging in Rwanda, including the building behind us, the I&M Bank building and other projects in pipeline. So this is the private sector that is taking from what we do and what we advocate for. So now that we have we have engaged the media, we have engaged the district environmental committees, we have the neighborhood planning guideline, we have the portal. So all of those are key products, if I can say, of this project, but they will be used in the next or in the country by users and by other stakeholders. So the neighborhood will serve the district to develop the fiscal plan, the portal will serve for information and communication, the media is now engaged for our mass communication and knowing what the community understand we want from the government. So it will be for sure continued in another way, in one way or another, regardless of the end of the project. Actually, these are key elements, I may say, as way forward. We will sustain what we have and make sure that what we produced is being used to achieve the main goal of green growth and sustainable development. So on the behalf of the country representative, I thank you for your participation, but also request you to keep in touch and keep the work moving toward a zero economic growth for Rwanda.
I think I talked a lot. Yeah, I only want to say this is not the end of the road. The journey has just begun by the end of this project. We are looking forward to several other projects since we still have the GCF. It's now upon us to use the capacities built and the knowledge that we have exchanged. We need to keep exchanging it, keep visiting the websites, keep visiting GGI websites, the Ministry of Environment. The doors are open for us to serve you. So I just want to say thank you for your participation and keep innovating. Thank you. Those are just my remarks.
Thank you very much, Rachel and JP. Once again, thank you to all our panelists and our guests for today's workshop. Before we leave the room, I would just like to inform our guests that we do have journalists that belong to the Rwanda Environment Journalists Network. This is a registered NGO in Rwanda, and some of them are in the room today. So please bear with me, but they would like to have 1 or 2 interviews that will be done with our respective guests. They will approach you as we go for lunch and ask you for a brief interview, so please allow them some time. For our group photo, I'm just going to ask that we all come towards the stage and we'll try and sit everybody before we head off for lunch. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you to our participants online, and especially the representatives from the Green Climate Fund. I'm going to ask you to enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and please join us for lunch downstairs. Thank you.